The summer heat's got me beat. And D&D is tonight. I can't prep the game like this. I need the cool, fresh taste of water levels. Just crack one open and
You're watching Kraken Week on ADHDM TV.
We as a society seem to have a collective psychic scar from water levels. And based on the assumption baked into Dungeons & Dragons that characters should avoid being in or near water at all costs, this trauma extends into the realm of tabletop. And I get it. Up here, we're awesome. But the second we get even close to a large body of water, we're freaking out about swim speed and how long we can hold our breath. We're slower, we're worse at everything, and aquatic monsters have no such weakness. So you're dealing out slow motion dream punches while dolphins stunt on you so hard your shirt flies off. The power scalers ignore that feat, but I remember. Flipper solos Jujutsu Kaisen. But there's a reason that one of the stock midlife crises is for dads to get all weird about sailing. The ocean is awesome. In the antiquated sense of the word. It's the closest to a completely alien world we can actually visit. The creatures there don't move or eat or breathe like we do. And since damn near every video game seems to have someone on the dev team who's like, we gotta do a water level, I'm gonna blow us all to pieces, I swear to fucking God. That genuine love of the brine has made its way into even the most awful examples of underwater segments in video games. And there are 4 things I absolutely think we should plunder from these levels if we want to add some depth to our underwater and seafaring adventures.
Oh, boo! You suck.
If an enemy can fly and you can't fly, that sucks. But underwater, that's a different story. The Z-axis can't save you now, coward. There is a problem in 5e.
Just play another RPG. You're pretending like boat doors doesn't even exist. I hope you get it.
Like I was saying, the problem in 5e is that just being underwater gives you the same penalties as having 3 levels of exhaustion. And that sucks. Luckily, there's a little variant rule I like to use that's tucked way in the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide, and it's called Ignore That Shit. Having some kind of penalty makes sense, but if going underwater means that you suck at everything now, you're probably not gonna do that. Once again, I turn to video games for guidance. With few exceptions, when the light gets blue and the music gets chill, movement becomes really slippery. When you commit to moving in a certain direction, you keep moving in that direction even when you want to stop. It has this rubber band inertia to it. In video games, that presents a challenge to tweaking your muscle memory. In tabletop, that's a resource that we can use to create choices, aka the entire backbone of gameplay, aka the thing that separates this from just being told a story by our friends. So instead of saying, you're slow now, you want to move your speed underwater? Go for it. If it's in a straight line. You want to stop short of your full speed or change directions? I'll be confiscating 10 feet of that movement speed, please. Don't make me pull over because I don't have the movement speed remaining to do it. Attacks are going to work the same as they do outside of the water, except the ranged attack missing past its range thing. I think that's pretty cool. Swim speed enjoyers, ignore everything I just said. You're perfect. Mwah.
But what about me?
For tracking 3D movement, I use these Magic the Gathering spinners because they go in numerical order. But basically you can use a D20 or a D12 or a D100. You're just gonna track relative to the surface or the seafloor, whichever makes more sense, how many squares of 5 feet away you are. And to calculate the distance between 2 objects at different depths, don't. The higher number is the distance. 10 feet this way, 30 feet that way, 30 feet. 20 feet this way, 10 feet that way, 20 feet. We haven't given a rat's ass about Pythagoras in this game before, and we're not gonna start now. I killed him in the best Assassin's Creed game. 1 plus con mod minutes is already an insane amount of time. To be able to hold your breath, it already brings that element of resource management to the table. We can leave it alone. This way we just have to make sure we have enough oxygen left in our blood to get back to the surface or suck on some floor bubbles. Because we're zooming around in Minecraft space instead of Terraria space, we don't have to resort to foot stuff when we're facing off against colossal foes. We can do eye stuff. Even hand stuff. Speaking of hand stuff, who's that over there?
I'll have you now. Face my tentacled wrath. Oh, huh. Guess I didn't think you would. Alright, you know what?
When we know combat will take place in 3 dimensions, massive enemies have way more potential. Consider the humble Kraken. Like many high CR monsters, it comes preloaded with a lot of hit points, multiple attacks, and a high CR. That's about it. It can cast butt darkness, that's pretty cool, I guess. In Shadow of the Colossus, the underwater boss fight is pretty frustrating. The game already has wet noodles for controls. More wet is a lot to ask. I say that respectfully. Hydrus, I think is his name, Colossus 7, isn't just huge. It matters where you are relative to Hydrus's body parts. And combined with our movement hack from earlier, this added pressure on positioning can make solo boss fights way more engaging. And there's a system neutral way to do it. Zones. By breaking the Kraken up into 5 different zones and giving them each their own spot in the turn order and special properties and reactions, we turn big monsters into tiny dungeons for the players to traverse. Allow me to introduce the Mangler of Crescent Bay. Centuries ago, one of the many daughters of a god of valor and sportsmanship took to the sea to hunt a kraken. The warrior's spear pierced the kraken's heart, but the mighty monster crushed the life out of her body with its dying breaths. Furious, the god punished his daughter's slayer, cursing the kraken to an eternity of madness and suffering. Only when it is removed can the kraken finally die, released from its undying fury. So understanding that our objective is getting to the heart and removing the spear, we can decide what our zones are going to be. Zone 1, tentacles. Easy. 8 of them. They get to attack and grapple when a creature enters or leaves their reach, and we've got to get past them. Zone 2, the face. Let's put a sick lightning crystal in the kraken's forehead. It lets it spit out lightning breath after charging one turn. It can react to any physical attack by coating the kraken's whole body in lightning, dealing damage to the attacker and dealing a lot of damage to anyone grappled by or inside the kraken. Zone 3, the tail. This thing is giving the kraken a 30-foot swim speed boost and an attack that pushes every nearby creature away. When the kraken is at half HP, it lets out a blinding poisonous ink cloud and lets the kraken swim up to its speed, obscured by the butt darkness. Zone 4, the gills. These act as a door to get into the chamber of the heart. Ideally, you'll want the tentacles and lightning crystal to be disabled before you try to get in. Zone 5, the heart. We'll put a guardian here, a shade of the fallen warrior to keep anyone from pulling the spear free. And I'm a huge fan of letting systems handle stats, so you can plug and play that into whatever game you want. You can find the system neutral template for this zone-based boss fight in Undertow, the Kraken Week zine put out by the inimitable Dungeon Dad. Thanks, Josiah. You're the coolest. Hello. Editor Skylar here to let you know that I did not finish the Kraken in time to submit it to Undertow, but it's still a really cool little zine and you should totally check it out. Giant, almost free-roaming boss fights are one of the cooler things that water levels have given us. When I think about some underwater or on-the-water sections, my heart just starts racing. That big-ass eel in Mario 64, that horrible thing in Banjo-Kazooie, the lurker sharks in Jak and Daxter, the whole game Subnautica. And what was that? No! Look who it is! Time for a special 100% true, verified, not made up at all message from Pointy Hat.
Skylar can dunk a basketball and has a 5-foot vertical leap. I have seen it.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. I know water levels, especially these ones bent towards fear, can feel unfair. But it's
not just water levels. All video games have the same problem. They just expect you to have hands. There's no...
Pointy Hat? Maybe he's just swimming? Hats like to swim, right? I could wait for...
You're in my world now, land boy.
You might notice I changed shirts. Full disclosure, I feel like I'm in water level right now because I sweat through my clothes so much I had to change them. It's 104 degrees outside and I film without air conditioning in a garage. A breath timer alone is kind of scary. You want to make sure a Sonic fan never sleeps through their alarm again. Set that shit to and 3D games with directionless, murky waters plunge my stomach into despair when I realize I don't know where I am. And speaking as someone who can get lost when there's 2 ways into the same room from different parts of the building, it can happen quite a bit. That's not even to mention all the monsters. From the really tame stuff, like the fucking things that wake up when you swim by them in Super Mario World, to the aforementioned lurker sharks in Jak and Daxter. That racing heartbeat that accompanies the music, and it just swallows all the other sounds in the game while it gets closer and closer and closer. Also, it's time to make a public apology. Hi, Dustin. I'm sorry that I told you that you could kill the lurker sharks in Jak and Daxter if you were fast enough. I don't know why I was bringing that particular kid who makes shit up about video games at the playground energy to the function that day. I hope you didn't waste too much time on it.
Well, better you than me.
But that kind of atmosphere generates a spellbinding pressure. We feel that A, we don't have unlimited time to figure this out. B, if we stray too far into the unknown or even linger in the familiar for too long, something's gonna get us. And the third, which to my ADHD zero object permanence ass is the most sinister source of pressure, what if we can't find our way back? Back to the familiar or even back to the surface? With no landmarks and no real sense of progress, no horizon to move towards, exploration feels wrong. Add in some unknown threat that appears just at the edge of your vision every time you stop to gather your bearings, and you're in for a scary time. You can do this in any system. The important thing is that the less the players see of the threat until it's upon them, the better. And even if you end up in the very likely scenario that they take more of a Jason Statham in The Meg than Chief Brody in Jaws approach, a little bit of
existential dread as we wade through an uncaring abyss slowly hunted by creatures older than civilization
can go a long way. And despite all of that, or maybe even because of it, in contrast to it, the prevailing tone in water levels is usually pretty nice. I'm from West Texas. In terms of water, we have playa lakes, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a nice little shallow recess in the earth where really cool water used to be. Perhaps Cro-Magnon man once sipped from bountiful streams and lakes. Now, they are dirty puddles. When kids with rich families would get back from their California vacations and suddenly their whole personality was,
I mean, yeah, brah, it's a lifestyle. You wouldn't get it.
I felt a little resentment towards our world's beautiful oceans, rivers, and lakes, etc. I was so jaded that I was a weeb in the mid-aughts and didn't even want to read One Piece. But I am reading it right now for a secret project, and you can read it along with me. And declare your eternal loyalty to pencils at patreon.com/ADHDN. And later, when my mom went through a whole dolphins ocean phase and our bathroom turned into a teal porpoise shrine, I was not impressed. Then, after I joined the Navy and got medically separated after an autism assessment, Skylar lore, and I actually got to see this ocean thing for myself, I finally understood. This is also an apology to my mom. Sorry, Dustin, for lying about video games. Sorry, Mom, for thinking dolphins were cringe. It's not just free in the sense that it feels open, like you can go anywhere, like anything can happen. It's free in a monetary sense. It costs no money to go to the beach. And one of the primary activities that you do there is enjoy it. It doesn't really ever get old. I found myself out on the water looking at the glittering waves, gazing out into the distance just to see where the ocean met the sky. Moana was on some real shit. It's really beautiful. It's such a ready and abundant source of wonder and calm, even with all the scary, unseen, unknown weirdness. And there's no better way to microdose on that feeling than slipping into the lovingly crafted, clumsily assembled, comically frustrating segments of video games that take place in the deep blue sea. The caustics. There's a vocabulary word for you. Dappling the surface, refracting sunlight and warping shadows. Sound and motion alike are muted, dampened, softened. And when I'm running underwater games, I really love to cool down the lights and throw on some water level sound and ass music. And I just bask in the vibe. In case you haven't noticed, Kraken Week is in full swing, and I cannot believe that I am saying these words in this order. Thank you, Jenny D, Pointy Hat, Val at Corkboards and Curiosities, Deficient Master, Indestructo Boy, for collaborating with me on segments of this video. The community of D&D YouTubers is among the kindest, most creative, most passionate groups I've ever had the pleasure and privilege of stumbling into. Also, thank you to my wife for spraying me in the face with the water hose for the intro. It felt pretty good. It was very hot outside. At @the_ADHDM on Instagram, you will see pictures of pencils. At Skylar ADHDM on Twitter, you will see me yapping about projects in progress. Patreon.com/ADHDM for limited edition cringe. Keep your pencil sharp. Show this video to your English teacher. And